This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. This mug is empty, but it felt like a nice touch. For the next half hour, I'll be breaking down the latest news and cover some of what everybody's talking about right now, while my colleagues are socially distancing from me. Here's what you need to know. Virus cases are still on the rise across much of the US. Even as most states lift some restrictions, the number of cases has increased across 18 different states, including Florida and California. Only 10 states have seen a decline over that time.
I can't breathe.
A black man appeared to yell, "I can't breathe," as a police officer pinned him to the ground by his neck for 8 minutes in Minneapolis Monday. That man, identified as George Floyd, was transported to the hospital and died hours later. Now the FBI is investigating. Police say they were called to a forgery in progress and that the man resisted arrest. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey said earlier today that the 4 Minneapolis Police Department officers who responded to the call that led to Floyd's death have been terminated. Open for business, traders returned to the New York Stock Exchange floor for the first time since it closed March 23rd due to the pandemic. To be exact, about a quarter of the traders are back on the floor, and they have to wear masks, avoid public transport, and practice social distancing. But hey, it's a start. Those stock traders aren't the only people across the US and across the world getting back to work. Even as millions continue working from home, designers are now reimagining corporate spaces for the post-pandemic era. Newsy's Kat Sandoval breaks it down.
For a lot of us, this is a familiar look. Working from home. But as businesses reopen, how will workspaces be redesigned for workers to come back in the middle of the pandemic? Instead of this, you might see this.
There's no stopping, there's no temperature guns, there's none of that uncomfortable type of protocol that we've seen today.
Chicago-based Dubach Electrical Group says they've installed over 172 of their thermal cameras in buildings around the country. It can detect a person's temperature within 30 milliseconds and monitor about 800 people in an hour in a single line.
The Deuthermix is a fully integrated body temperature measurement system that operates strictly with an AI facial detection profile, which measures your temperature between your chin and your forehead. It will put a green box or a red box around the individual's face as they migrate through a point of entry.
A red box indicates a high temperature, and the monitoring staff is alerted. And when you get to the elevator, it might be contactless, where cell phone apps or fobs are used to let the elevator know which floor to stop. The 6-feet prototype developed in the Netherlands include clear markings for elevators and workspaces to show proper spacing, plus clearly labeled arrows that assist workflow traffic.
None of these offices that will be reoccupied are starting from a blank canvas. They exist. So what we're doing is we're retrofitting and we're applying those concepts.
It's more than just design. The companies I've spoken to say it's about different operational systems working together and communicating.
Ensuring that the cleanliness of clean desks is the priority, and that, back to the communication issue, that there's notification that something has been cleaned.
Limiting the number of on-site employees and staggered work times can help reduce office density. The other side of that is getting employees to mentally prepare to come back to work.
The employers have to make sure that they put together a detailed change management plan and communications to provide those employees with the information so that they have what they need when they walk in day one.
This is an invisible threat. And what design can do and needs to do is make that threat visible. I think the fundamental question is, how do you solve for the problem and have it be centered around the people, not the virus?
James Ludwig leads furniture company Steelcase. He predicts flexible furniture designs that allow for social distancing when needed and the ability to rearrange when not.
One thing I find intriguing is that as some of these large customers of ours have declared they're going to have their people work at home through the end of the year. So it's opening up possibilities and opportunities.
Ludwig recommends safe office spaces where individuals can take a break and go mask-free after wearing them all day. Kat Sandoval, Newsy, Chicago.
Get your Sherlock Holmes hats ready, y'all. We about to meet the internet detective.
Miss getting email that isn't junk? You should know about Newsy's daily newsletter. It's breaking news right to your inbox. Get caught up quick with the best Newsy stories every day. Join us at signup.newsy.com. Be informed, not influenced.
As we approach the 2020 election, Newsy's breaking away from the noise, fanfare, and partisanship, shedding new light on the real, human stories behind the issues voters care about most. Off the Trail, part of our comprehensive 2020 election coverage.
Our Newsy Bellingcat series has been cranking out visual investigations and racking up shiny journalism awards for almost a year now. Basically, we partner with the international journalist collective Bellingcat to shed light on international conflict, extremism, and just general shadiness. Newsy Bellingcat is a pretty cool series with a long name, so we decided to make it even longer for a new original segment we're doing, Newsy Bellingcat, Internet Detective. Right now, we're joined by Jake Godin. Jake is a longtime Newsy veteran and also the producer for the Newsy Bellingcat series. Jake, today you are our internet detective. We're going to talk about a conspiracy theory that's been circulating, where it comes from, and if there's any truth to it. Do you accept this mission?
Oh, of course.
What is the theory we're going to be diving into today? Can you give me a primer?
Yeah, it's the pretty wild theory that 5G causes COVID-19. Essentially, people think that either 5G cellular network towers are spreading COVID-19 either by weakening people's immune systems due to the waves from them, or even like spreading it, like COVID like attaches itself to the like airwaves that, are caused by these 5G towers. There's been, at least I've read, 77 phone masts have been attacked in the United Kingdom and throughout Europe as well. The Netherlands have had like 16, I think, the last number I read, and then Ireland's had a few, and Belgium, Italy, Cyprus, Sweden have all had like minor incidents with towers. And the United States is worried, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, worried that it's going to come here to the United States. And in fact, some towers have been vandalized here in the States.
Where did this come from?
It mainly started in the UK. There's a video on Facebook that went around. It was like going viral. It's a guy who was in Britain and he was staring up at a tower. He's holding a chipset, a motherboard. Then he shows it to the camera and it has like COVID-19 on it. Mm-hmm. And it's on this little gray square.
Perhaps the best thing is for me to show you. It's best if I just show you, look. There's a piece of 5G kit and it says COVID-19 on it.
But if you look, there's a lot of clues within the video that show that it's, and quite a few people have gone through this already and debunked this, but there's quite a few clues that point to that, the fact that like this chipset, this motherboard, is just from like a tabletop television box. It's like from a cable box. The guy like took his from home or found an old one, took it apart, took out the motherboard, noticed it said COVID-19 on it, or put it on there himself, and is just like pulling people's strings. But it's also just driving, it's like pouring fuel on this conspiracy theory because people are believing it.
What makes this conspiracy theory untrue?
We all know about that spectrum where it's like, this is radioactive X-ray, etc. This is visible light. This is like radio waves. Well, 5G is over there with the radio waves in terms of like the length. It's like harmless in that sense. If 5G was harmful to you, radio waves would also be harmful to you. Satellite, TV, all this other stuff that's like way over there on that end of the spectrum would also be harming us, and we'd have built up science evidence on this. A virus is a physical thing. It literally cannot attach itself to a radio wave or a 5G wave. What is the overall impact of that sort of conspiracy theory? Well, first and foremost, it's going to cause actual damage to telecom infrastructure if people keep on attacking it like they are. It's also causing the engineers working on this stuff to be threatened. It just sows distrust, which is already something that's kind of like precious and hard to keep. Jake Godin, thank you for your time and for being our internet detective. We hope you'll join us again with another conspiracy theory. Oh yeah, thank you. Here's a question a lot of people have been asking. No, not how do I change my background on Zoom, though that is also relevant. The question is, with unemployment at Great Depression levels and so many businesses shuttered or out for good,
How and why is the stock market doing so well? It's almost like this thing doesn't reflect the economy as a whole at all. For Newsy's virology series, Ellen Rolfes talked to the experts to break down this gap between Wall Street and the street where the rest of the American economy lives.
On Main Street, Americans are struggling. COVID-19 has forced businesses to shut their doors, travel has been put on hold, and consumers have cut down their spending. But on Wall Street, stocks are rallying. So how have financial markets become so disconnected with the realities on the ground? Here's why Wall Street and Main Street have diverged.
Coronavirus fears wiped out all of this year's stock market gains.
Wall Street ending one of the worst weeks of trading since the financial crisis in 2008.
In mid-February, COVID-19 began spreading to more countries, and as the number of cases rose, the stock market plummeted.
This recession essentially came out of nowhere because it wasn't a financial crisis that is leading to it. It was a global health pandemic.
But by the end of March, the downward trend on Wall Street reversed, and stock market values bounced back, returning to similar levels it had been a year ago, when the unemployment rate was less than 4%. The official unemployment rate reached 14.7% by the end of April.
This is one of the best weeks in the stock market, so I think there's a tremendous feeling of optimism in this country.
You've probably heard this before, but the stock market is not the economy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, for example, has only 30 of the biggest companies in the US. The S&P 500 has, well, you guessed it, 500 companies. Absent from these carefully curated lists are the 30 million small businesses with fewer than 500 employees.
Most people assume stock prices are closely linked to profits and profits only. But that's not really what's going on.
Jay Zagorski says the recent stock market recovery can be explained by two other factors.
So when a disaster hits this country like COVID-19, the Federal Reserve, the central bank of this country, lowered interest rates. And that boosted stocks.
Lower interest rates make borrowing money cheaper, so big businesses tend to increase spending and investors can take more risks.
But right now, I think what a lot of financial traders are looking at is the demise of competition. As the COVID-19 shutdown expands, more and more companies are at risk of bankruptcy. Let me give you a quick example. There's really three big cruise ships lines. There's Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian. Norwegian cruise ships said that they are at risk for going bankrupt. If you take one of the three big players out of the market, that means there's less competition for the other two, and once people decide to go back to cruise ships, there's less price competition. That'll boost their future profits.
This example highlights another important thing to remember about the stock market. It focuses on the future. If investors believe the worst parts of the pandemic are in the past, that means there's nowhere to go but up. But the country's economic health depends on more than stocks. Things like GDP, consumer spending, housing values, and employment.
The labor market is a more important indicator to measure because that looks at how much people are able to work, whether or not people are getting the hours that they need, what their pay is. That is really how people make ends meet in the economy.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics stated that of the 20 million newly unemployed, 18 million were on temporary layoff. So the big question is, will all these people return to work? And as states ease quarantine measures and businesses reopen, is it safe to say that the worst is behind us?
It is possible that it will rebound faster than the Great Recession, but we don't know when the rebound will happen because we don't know when this is going to be over because essentially we're waiting on a vaccine, right? And that takes time.
We got to pay some bills right quick, but when we're back, we'll talk about something space enthusiasts have been waiting for the last decade. Excited that you found Newsy's clear, straightforward news reporting? Just remember, you can come back every morning for fresh, up-to-date stories and get your day started with news that matters most to you. On your schedule, anytime you need us, every day. All facts, no opinion. We're Newsy. Be informed, not influenced.
Native women have told me that what you do when you raise a daughter is you prepare her for what to do when she's raped, not if, but when.
Why are we different than every other person? Why don't we have the justice everybody else does?
You can learn a lot from Twitter, like why a dog shelter felt they had to post about this first topic. Here's what's trending. AmyCooper is trending, but so is Central Park and Christian Cooper. All of them stem from the same run-in in New York Central Park when a white woman, that's AmyCooper, called police on a black man, that's Christian Cooper, and said he was threatening her life after the two got into a verbal tiff over Amy's unleashed dog.
I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
AmyCooper has since apologized.
I sincerely and humbly apologize to everyone, especially to that man, his family.
But the whole thing is set off social media, with people pointing to it as just one more example of white people calling the police on black people over some pretty mundane things. If you spent any time online in the last few days, you might have seen Doja Cat or hashtag Doja Cat is over party fly across your timeline. If you're not familiar, Doja Cat is an up-and-coming musician whose song Say So topped the Billboard Hot 100 and got people dancing on TikTok.
Why don't you say so? Didn't even know.
But internet sleuths found old videos of Doja in chat rooms frequented by incels and resurfaced an old song called Didn't Do Nuffin', a known racist slur. She offered up an apology on her IG, saying she used to frequent chat rooms as a kid, and the resurfaced song stems from her experiences as a black woman. We've seen this before. Star power rises, and so do the mounds of dirt from past behavior. And did you know today is Sally Ride Day, honoring the first American woman to go to space? When she entered orbit in 1983 aboard the second flight of the Space Shuttle Challenger at the age of 32, the physicist also became the youngest American astronaut to travel into space, a claim she still holds. Ride died of pancreatic cancer in 2012. By the way, a new show like this one needs a new hashtag. Help me keep track of my haters by heading over to Newsy's Twitter and casting a vote for your favorite hashtag for the show, because we love democracy. Here's something that'll likely be trending tomorrow. NASA is sending Americans into space from American soil for the first time in almost a decade. It's an all-American spaceflight, but it's also a first for SpaceX, the company supplying the rocket. They've never had human beings on one of their rockets, which, as you can imagine, is a BFD. That's cool and all, but what exactly are the astronauts planning to do up there? James Packard's got us covered.
For the first time in almost a decade, American astronauts will blast off American soil on an American rocket. Astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley arriving in Florida Wednesday for next week's launch.
It is exciting. It is really, really exciting, in fact.
NASA and SpaceX are taking the company's Crew Dragon capsule to the International Space Station, a major shift in the U.S. space industry's partnership with private companies.
It's commercial. I think that's really important in the evolution of human exploration and development of space.
And most visibly, it's the restart of American-launched human spaceflight since the last shuttle mission in 2011.
And liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis.
We definitely take inspiration from those that have come before us.
NASA even bringing back a retro logo, harkening back to the shuttle days. But this time, there'll be no crowds at Kennedy Space Center.
It's been a long road to get here, and I don't think either one of us would have predicted that when we were ready to go fly this mission that we would be dealing with this as well.
NASA wants would-be spectators at home to limit the spread of the coronavirus.
We won't have, the luxury of our family and friends being there.
Behnken and Hurley, longtime friends and colleagues, have been isolating together, working side by side through the pandemic to prepare.
We had to come up with a lot of unique ways to continue the training without too big of a speed bump.
3, 2, 1. They've seen years of tests, from the rocket that will carry them to the parachute that will bring them back for a safe landing.
Dragons away.
And a system that can get the crew half a mile away from the rocket in about 7 seconds, should anything go awry.
And you can hear some really loud cheering in the room.
Once they're up, they'll dock with the International Space Station, a stay that could last 1 to 4 months.
First and foremost is safe and effective space transportation.
Their mission, to make sure NASA and SpaceX are ready for future crewed missions. SpaceX is already touting a 4-person mission targeted for later this year.
We have gone very far in less than a century, far less than a century, and it's really extraordinary to think about that.
James Packard, Newsy, Chicago.
This launch is one small step for SpaceX and one giant leap for future CEO A12 Musk.
Sure. Memes and cat videos are fun, but actual news might be a bit more useful. Follow Newsy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get straightforward, opinion-free news right on your social news feed.
One of the toughest parts of this whole pandemic has been the way it's kept us apart from our friends and family. And if you think that's bad while you're quarantined on the couch, just think about what it's like for someone in the hospital, far from home, and going into labor alone. Newsy's Lauren Knapp has this story on giving birth during the pandemic.
Like, we're not meant to labor alone, you know, and when you're that much pain and like you don't feel like you have an advocate, it was really hard.
The European Union announced on Monday it's poised to close its borders in an effort to stop the spread of the coronavirus.
The country's health minister is warning the public to remain at home, noting the worst is yet to come.
My first appointment with my OB-GYN here was on the 17th, and everything was very tense and people didn't really know how to interact with other people. So like usually when you go to a maternity, it's a joyful place, right? The other part too is with everyone wearing masks, which of course is really important, but when it's your second language, you realize how much you lip read. Partners cannot participate in the labor right now, only in the actual delivery. The statistics are there. When you don't have a partner at birth, your outcomes tend to be less favorable.
It's April 21st. It's about 6:30 in the morning, and I woke up at 3 o'clock with contractions. It's empty, there's nobody here, the lights are off, things are very somber. I'm supposed to be wearing this mask, but I can't get through contractions feeling like I'm suffocated. Because of the coronavirus, I cannot have anybody accompany me right now until I'm 3 centimeters dilated. I'm currently only 1 centimeter dilated. So my partner is waiting in the car in the parking lot, and it's quite hard not having somebody to get through these contractions. I've asked for food, it still hasn't come. And I've asked for water, I don't have any water.
Nobody checked on me for 4 hours. I can't do this anymore alone. I need my husband here. He came like within 15 minutes, so that was good. So we finally got the epidural in, and then I was like, I could breathe again. And then my midwife, who was lovely, you know, up until this point, I'd been just yelling at her because I was so mad. And she was just a wonderful human being. She's like, you know, we got off to a rough start, but now we're going to get to know each other. And, you know, and I'm here for you. I'll be here all day, so it'll be okay. The new doctor came in and he was like, all right, it's time to push. He probably gave me like 4 or 5 chances. And then he was like, oh, no, this isn't going to work. We're going to have to use forceps. Before like even knew what was happening, he'd already like cut the episiotomy and was putting forceps inside of me. And that was it.
It's April 24th and my baby was just born 3 days ago on April 21st. And it's been a roller coaster ride. I had a very difficult labor, and it was really hard to be laboring alone. I've been in the maternity for 3 days by myself with my baby, which has been nice because We've had a lot of time to rest and relax, especially recover, but it's incredibly difficult for a number of reasons. One is just not having support to take care of a newborn. So recovering from childbirth while also taking care of a newborn is a lot of work. If I had just an extra set of hands, that would be great. But also just missing out on that bonding experience as a family and not being able to do that in the first critical days is difficult.
Like in a normal world, I think a lot of things would have been different and really great. But in like the COVID world, it was really, there was much more of a challenging context, and we're all dealing with this in some way of losing something and gaining something and kind of having to mourn what we lost and having to adapt to the new normal kind of.
That's it for In the Loop tonight. I'm about to power down at my desk for the next 23 and a half hours, but I'll boot back up tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, stick around here for more top stories from Newsy.